Hello class, I have corrected all of the Appendix G assignments and I noticed that there were some common errors. And when I see a trend and everybody's making the same mistakes, I realized that maybe I had not explained the assignment well enough. And so I'm going to provide you with this little video here about some of the common errors and allow everybody to resubmit Appendix G, because this really is what goes into your EBP assignment. And so this is the opportunity for you to correct any mistakes so you'll get full points in the EBP assignment. So some of the common errors were the reference for level of evidence was omitted. The method for assessing quality was omitted, and assessing quality is another word for critical appraisal, and that's using the critical appraisal tools, or JBI checklist is a critical appraisal. So references were not always formatted according to APA, and want to show you a little trick about how to format a table, which might be portrait or landscape view, and then have your reference on a portrait page. So the directions for the EBP assignment and for this Appendix G was to choose the appropriate critical appraisal tool from your resources provided in the course. Use the tools to assess 4 to 6 articles. You must have at least one quantitative, one qualitative, and one review article. You were to use this Appendix G, and this was some of the headings that were in Appendix G. You were to list the level of evidence and the quality, so include the name of the critical appraisal tool, include the results of the critical appraisal tool, and then to have your reference list formatted in APA. So the level of evidence, if we're thinking about the level of evidence, there were some choices that you were given through the course resources and videos. One was, of course, the Pollitt and Beck book, right on the inside cover there. They have the hierarchy of levels of evidence. There was also some other ones that I had given to you, and it was noted that some of the levels were a little different. So what I really wanted you to do was tell me to cite what tool you used to determine level of evidence. So this could have been done right after here on this table that you have, the Appendix G. You could have put a little citation right after level of evidence, and then I would have known all the levels of evidence that you mentioned in this column refer to this citation, and then you were to reference it. If you use different levels of measurement tools, then you could have done it individually in each one of these rows. The next common error really was on quality. So if we go back to this here on this column here, the video that I had made for you guys, I really went over this column and said this quality here, aka our JBI critical appraisal checklist tools. What I wanted you to say was the quality good enough that you would include or exclude, and just, I said, give 1 or 2 quick sentences of why you determined to include or exclude. So I didn't want the quality of what the researchers said was maybe their limitations of their study. I wanted you to look at that whole checklist and tell me how you critically appraise this study. And in this column here, you would say whether you're going to include it or exclude it. So if we just back up a little bit and talk about everything in this Appendix G study, right? These are the articles that you found your keywords, you went to a database, you put in your limiters, and you came out with, we said maybe 10 to 15 eligible studies that met all your inclusion and exclusion criteria. So for the studies to be in this table here and to be in your review of the evidence, they have already met all those criteria that you use to find these studies in the first place. So this really here, we're not looking at did these studies meet the inclusion or exclusion criteria, because they already have, for them to have made it to that bottom of your Prisma diagram, they've met all the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Now you're taking these articles and you are assessing them for quality. So is this a robust study? Is it high enough quality that you are going to use this study to determine whether you're going to change how you practice? So if the study is high quality and the level of evidence is what you need to make practice changes, then you are going to be able to trust the results of these studies, and these results are going to inform whether you change your practice or not. So we had a few people who chose questions, PICO questions, that were not always interventional, that were maybe more meaning-based. So if we look into, and I keep referring people back to this website here, this is the Oregon Health Science University EBP Toolkit Level of Evidence. So at the top here, it has a little bit different level of evidence hierarchy than the one in Pollitt and Beck. So if you would use this one, you could have just cited and referenced this webpage. But then what levels of evidence do we need to have before we change practice? So we talked about this. If you're having an intervention where you're saying, should we scrub all hubs of central lines with this solution before, to reduce infection rates? So that's more something that would be an interventional study. But if you're saying, should we put in this programs to reduce burnout in nursing, that's more of a question about of meaning. So on this page right here, it says what type of clinical questionnaire you have and what research design do you need to have in order to change your practice. So if there's any kind of therapy questions, diagnosis, prevention, they really need those higher levels. But if you have a meaning question, how do people feel? How does this help people cope better? Quality studies are enough for you to change practice. So levels of evidence don't always have to be level 1 and level 2. They are if you are dealing with these type of questions here. But if you're dealing with a meaning question, then qualitative studies are okay. So don't feel compelled to have to have found level 1 and level 2 evidence, or even level 3, if you have a meaning PICO question. But everybody would have to have had determined or critically appraised the studies that they did include as high quality for us to be able to use the findings of that study to inform our practice or to support evidence-based practice change. I hope that makes sense. If this doesn't, please maybe put a question on Ask the Instructor, because if it doesn't make sense for you, it probably doesn't make sense for other people in the class as well. And I really want this to be clear for people. The next element for this assignment was really having a reference page. So I wanted to show you a few tips about how to make reference pages. So I'm going to use these a couple examples here. That there is one really high quality table in reference. So I'm going to use this as a sample here. So this person submitted to me 2 Word documents. One had this terrific table, and the other one had the references on a separate page. So just to put them on the same page, what you could do, so here's this appendix, Appendix G, and you go to the page layout here and the orientation, you see this is landscape. And then the reference is probably portrait. So what we can do here is go down to the bottom, and we're going to do insert a page break. And by doing that, you'll have your references will always be on the top of this page here. So then we'll go to the references, and I'll go select all, copy, and I want to put those into the same Word document as the table. And then I can go paste here, and we say, these are all on a portrait view. So what we want to do is go to the top of this page here, and we're going to say, page layout, that I want this page to be portrait, but I don't want the table to be portrait. So I'm going to say, I apply to this point forward, and OK. So now I have a table up above that is landscape, and then my references are going the right way as portrait. So then you have your table and your references all in one document, and your professor is happy. The other common error that I saw was really that the title of an article often had all the first words capitalized. So what needs to be capitalized is the first word in a journal article or a book title, any letters or words that are after the colon, and then if there's any proper noun, like say this said medication error in U.S. hospitals, UNS should be capitalized. Another common one was that the journal title and the volume number weren't in italics. So these guys always need to be in italics, and you just would go up there and italicize it. And then we have our issue number there, page numbers. The other thing is these DOI, so Digital Object Identifier, has replaced you needing to say retrieved from. So retrieved from, using that is really old school. Giving a URL retrieved from here in the state. Now you just put the DOI, and that really is the old URL. This will bring people right to that journal there. So if you can find the DOI, and probably any article after 2000 has a DOI, you should be using that in your reference page. You should always have references center, the top, and all of these articles, they should all be double spaced. So you could just select all of these and then go up to here and do double space, which they already are in this one. And then I think you guys all got this, but to make sure that you have this hanging indentation, you go up to paragraph here, and you would put special and hanging. Okay? So I don't know why that did that. The person who did this page had done it right, so I think I just undid what they did. But that's really where you go to make this happen. So you could do write out all your references single space without them hanging, but you can come in here afterwards and you can change your spacing, double, hanging, and then you always want to make sure that your spacing before and after is 0. So at the end of a paragraph, you're not going to have any additional spaces. You want your whole paper and all your reference section just to be double spaced. Okay? I also want to point out to you in week 11, there is a YouTube about how to format tables. So tables should always have the title up above here in italics and capitalized. This will take you through how to do that. So that's all I have for this video. Next video, I will go over how to use Appendix H. So please, if you would like to get more points on your Appendix G, go ahead and resubmit by Sunday. And if you're happy with your points, that's great, but just make sure you take heed of these corrections so that you can have these corrections in your EBP assignment that's due soon. Okay, let me know if any questions.